You've led on our recent publication, the AI glossary we've produced. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. What the glossary intends to address is to help organisations recognise whether they're using AI and manage the risks. This is not a technical publication. It essentially walks you through the basics. And when we were putting this together, Andrew and I did work on this together, and we agreed 15 terms that we felt were probably the most commonly used, but to focus on the top 15 and then to provide a summary of the impacts across a number of business functions and domains, from strategic, financial, reputation, operational and legal considerations. And we have covered the crucial definition of AI. And I picked actually one of the definitions to give you an example of what is in here. And picking the obvious one is the AI system terminology, because that's the most important. And what we've covered is a high-level definition. So it's a machine system, computer program designed to simulate human intelligence. But we've also included the legal definition, which has been adopted in the EU. And that originated from the OECD AI principles, which is a wealth of resources. If you are just learning about AI, go and have a look at oecd.ai. We've also described the use cases, and in Rist, you've got fraud detection, there's medical diagnosis, facial recognition software, but also to look at the key risk considerations, such as the strategic considerations, the over-reliance on AI, lack of transparency. Maybe there's not enough governance in there or understanding of the technology. And finally, the purpose here is to encourage the use of AI, to augment the work of humans, to show that it can work across functions, that it can work proactively, and that it can be part of a business product or service, but also to show it needs to be treated differently to cybersecurity or data privacy. Those are side effects of using technology. The key considerations that need to be looked at if you're starting out and procuring, you're designing in AI, the glossary should be your go-to place, just to explain some of those terms that you may not have heard before. So that's a potted overview, and I would encourage the audience to go and download that and have a look and certainly provide feedback.
Fantastic. Thank you, Pauline. And Peter, if I start with you, if I could ask you, what do you see as the risks and opportunities for AI in this year?
Yes, thank you, Andrew. As we could see from latest reports of using AI in organization, it is not so popular. AI could be democratized through application of simple chat GPTs. We have example here from Poland. We developed within our community Polish LLM called Bielik. It recognizes country context, and it could be therefore used better for example, government proposals, because it understands the issues. But what is a risk? Yesterday, a Polish daily newspaper, one of the biggest, published a paper that over 90% of people share companies and sensitive data with public LLMs, that means ChatGPT or cloud.
So thanks, Peter. There's a lot there around the idea that one of the greatest risks is that we lose our privacy and we overshare without knowing that we're oversharing. Any reflections there on the risks and opportunities and that idea of oversharing?
The opportunities, which everybody will readily understand, are immense. But the challenges for most organizations right now are understanding and how to actually move forward. A number of organizations are trying to go through and become AI ready. Within that, there's everything from understanding their digital footprint and digital maturity, understanding their human capital. As we all know, in the world of technology, it's easy to unplug or plug in new pieces of technology. But if the people themselves don't actually use it or don't know how to use it or refuse to use the new technology, you don't get the benefit from it. We see a lot of really interesting challenges with organizations that say, well, I want to use it for this, but the technology isn't there yet, or they don't understand their workflow well enough to where the LLM or whatever the system is they're trying to use. And then starting to think through the data element, what does that look like? The next big challenge, which a lot of organizations are being really hesitant of, is understanding what the financials are within the AI space. So if I try and use some of these systems, do I get a financial benefit? And then the last one is the risk and the governance piece. And that's very, very much into roles and tasks, at least for us right now. Who has to do what within your organization? What committees need to be formed? Is this a risk committee? Is it an audit committee? Is it an AI committee? Do you need a chief AI officer, for example, to be on the line as all of this? And then going through the organization to make sure you have all the plans, policies, and procedures in place to use it. Those are some of the real sort of significant challenges we see at the moment.
But when you're putting AI into an organization, how do you stack up the financial case, and what do you see are the opportunities and risks for AI?
It's a really good question there, Andrew. I think we can maybe use some of the previous experiences going from maybe pen and paper into more technology-based tools and say, okay, our risk management program is now on paper and it's in the Excel spreadsheets, and now you want me to buy this fancy tool. It's the same considerations, but it's not my experience that buying better tools and increasing, let's say, efficiency actually leads organizations to say, oh, then we're going to cut effectiveness across our organization and let go part of our team members. So are we talking efficiency? I'm going to reduce my team, or effectiveness, right? I'm going to be spending my existing time better, removing manual tasks and getting more out of the team I have, or maybe I have to build the team in a different way with different capabilities than today, so I can root out some of the more manual tasks. That would be my approach, and not say, oh, you're buying AI, so you can save a lot of money. Talking challenges or risks in AI, seen from my perspective, being in the security and the physical security realm here or industry, the lack of insight and knowledge from risk managers typically is a huge barrier, that we're not going to get the best of this technology. I can also see that some of the organizations we work with do not necessarily address the challenges that the risk manager has, but maybe core into financial and operations, because that's where the money goes. So risk managers are sometimes left a little bit alone to navigate this space. How can we use it? And if we identify a reason to do so, how do we get the money to buy the skills? Because the existing AI engineers within the company, they're busy optimizing the supply chain or whatever. So I think that's a huge challenge, to be honest. Opportunities, very short. In my space where we're talking physical security, how do we analyze vast amounts of information? Sometimes it's called intelligence, and translate that into action.
Yeah. Have you got any examples that you can think of from your experience of AI doing well, doing badly, screw ups, that kind of thing?
All the examples I'm going to give you are actually based on classic AIs, not even Gen AI, just to underline the reason why action was taken in Europe to create the EU AI Act. And the origins of the law partly originated from an issue that arose in the Dutch government. And this issue crystallized during the pandemic. In a nutshell, they'd used classic AI techniques to develop an automated system within their child welfare department. And that automated system automatically sent out reclaims of child welfare benefits to people who were of dual nationality. So it singled out people who weren't Dutch nationals and clawed back all this money and caused untold harm to these people. And it prevailed for about 5 years without it being challenged fully. And it was Amnesty International, actually, that raised this issue amongst other human rights organisations. And they wrote a report called Xenophobic Machines, which really highlighted what had happened here. And in effect, they had developed on top of biased data. So there are already issues in terms of reviewing these claims. The people who were using the software were not fully trained, and the developers didn't explain how it made its decisions. So complaints couldn't be addressed. What is the compelling reason to use this software? And their compelling reason to use it was that they would be incentivized if they created more clawback demands. So it was not a virtuous circle, shall we say. And that's probably one of the worst cases.
The market is moving really, really rapidly at the moment. And ChatGPT obviously made a really, really large splash in the last few years. As that's maturing, what we're seeing more and more is AI tools becoming less of a bespoke thing you are accessing and more something that's part and parcel of what you already have in your pocket every day. And that is only going to increase that effect, that you can simply ask, you've been asked to do a risk assessment, to make it very practical for most risk managers. You've sent out a request to do a risk identification project. 9 times out of 10, we have to expect that human nature means that individuals are going to be using these tools in their pockets to help them in their workflow, to help them answer that question. What was typically a whiteboarding and a paper-based process in years gone by is going to be that. But the challenges for risk managers is how they make sure that their internal tools and systems and the access that's there can be equivalently accessible to staff in a secure environment so they can access that kind of knowledge and workflow that they have in their pocket in a secure environment, but also that the models that they're using are informed by internal data. So they're not basing, baseline information that they're using from AI systems to help them answer basic questions and improve their workflows is based on internal data from the organization rather than just generic what ChatGPT is giving them, what Apple is soon to be giving them, or the likes of Perplexity, Google, and Microsoft's products.
I suppose there's a danger there. There's a lot of silent integration going on, right? And we'll soon lose the ability to identify where AI is doing things and what is a baseline, etc. Yeah.
One of the interesting things that we looked at was in deepfake technology. And again, there's some really widely now known cases where there has been significant fraud, where we're now starting to see where we used to see sort of phishing attempts on an email basis. Now we can actually start to do that over a call. To give you an example, in the system I'm running right now, I will make a change and you'll see my camera will stop for just a second. It will come back on. And as it does, I am now in real time on the call with you. I am somebody else. You may recognize this person, but it is not difficult for me to change over and over. Now, a couple things you'll recognize pretty quickly. My voice is still the same. I haven't changed my voice. Now, that can be done. It's a little bit more complicated, more than we want to get into today. But to sync a different voice and a different face together is now possible, and it is doable with a very small delay. But my hair hasn't changed, my clothing hasn't changed. So the system itself really still needs to map to some facial structure that's similar to the person you're trying to mimic. It's helpful if you can mimic their sort of motions, the way they smile, the way they act, the way they talk, in order to convince somebody to do something. Now, most people will tell me on a deep fake immediately, I wouldn't be fooled by that because I'm going to recognize this as a deep fake. But you have to put yourself into a position of a very large organization where you may not personally know some senior executives. So you don't know their mannerisms. You don't know the kinds of contextual clues that you would be able to pick up. And if they tell you or ask you to do something on a call, you're in some cases likely to do so.
Can I ask each panelist where they think AI is headed?
Definitely AGI, everybody is talking about with this artificial general intelligence. I hate that name. I could call it augmented general intelligence because I think human will be still there. I'm more into Licklager philosophy that it will be symbiosis between man and machine. With every progress, there is risk and danger.
From what I'm hearing and understanding from smarter people is that these huge computational leaps might be resting a little bit. So the computer power that was necessary to produce ChatGPT or the big LLMs, that might be resting a little bit, meaning that we won't see these giant leaps in the future, but maybe increased development and adaptability and adoption of these technologies, right? Also, as Peter is indicating here, then we have maybe the existing toolbox, but they will become more and more advanced and more integrated as into our daily life and into becoming tools that we use working and privately and whatever. We might also see a reduction in the skepticism towards new technology. It has always been there, and maybe that will flatline a little bit and see, okay, we can actually use the tools in our everyday life.
In the near term, over the next sort of 2 years or so, we're going to see a lot of organizations try and figure out how to use this technology, which is going to drive the costs up. We don't have what we need for industry as to how much the demand is going to be. We're going to start to see organizations really have to figure out, okay, what's Am I going to invest in more digital sort of powered digital capital, or am I going to invest into human capital? And every day will be a new balancing act as we start to sort of lean into quantum computing, which will again change things over the next sort of 5-year horizon. Over a 10-year horizon, we'll start to realize we get sort of energy becomes a bit more abundant. We're going to start to see things like fusion and others. So we'll solve some of the elements that we're starting to see capacity constraints that we'll experience now. But I think a lot of the biggest challenges now are just hitting those capacity constraints, as sort of was mentioned already with this plateau. And how are we going to manage those, organization by organization, and how are we going to fund the development, the continued development, whether it's nuclear energy or others? How are we going to fund the development of these technologies that we all want to use?
The competition's very quickly switching to organizations getting access, whether or not that's talent, whether or not that's with key partnerships and strategic partnerships to lock down their exclusive access against competitors to that kind of model, or to build that internally and the resources that that's going to take. What we're already seeing is a little bit of a knee-jerk reaction around implementation towards efficiency and headcount reduction. It's the broader economic environment as well. And my sense is that one of the things we're going to see is an increasing realization that these are augmenting what your staff are doing and the knowledge that you have across your sites and across your staff network, rather than replacing that.
I would like to say thank you very much to Pauline, Hart, Mads, Peter, and Doug. And thank you, David Rubens, for obviously setting up the network, the ISRM, in the first place, and helping us get this conversation going out there into the wider world. Thank you, one and all, those of you that joined us, and I hope you find the recording very useful. Thanks, and from London, goodbye.